Good morning. We will call to order the MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for March 2nd, 2023. So item 2, items for individual consideration. Approve minutes of the February 2nd, 2023 MAPS 4 Citizens Advisory Board meeting. The minutes were included in your packet. Do we have any corrections or changes? If not, I take a motion in a second.
So moved.
Okay, please cast your vote.
It's not.
Are you on computer?
Yeah, I'm on computer.
Some of us got the vote screen and some of us are still on agenda. So can you do a voice? Okay?
Aye.
Okay? All right. Excuse us for our technical difficulties. We will move forward. Okay? Got it? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending January 31st, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have in your packet the MAPS 4 monthly financial report, as you said, for the period ending January 31st, 2023. On the revenue side for the month, $12,258,670 for fiscal year of $87,487,584, and a total of $347,640,204. I might point out that with the new projections, we are 1.2% over the projections. For the month, on the expenditure side, we have $1,173,412, fiscal year of $3,331,984, and total of $104,574,150. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Todd? Okay, if not, we'll take a motion in a second to receive the report. Okay, all those in favor, or please cast your vote. Whether you're in favor or not, sorry. The motion passes, thank you. All righty, moving on to item 2C, presentation on construction projects for MAPS 4 Downtown Arena Project, Phase 2B, retractable seating, Phase 2A, scoreboard replacement, Phase 1B, fixed seating, and the elevator improvements.
So we have quite a bit going on at Paycom Arena, and Kevin Cook from Populous is here today to give you an update on what's going on. So Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Morning, thank you for having me. So I'm going to give a quick recap of kind of what we've been working on design side of things for the last couple of months, and then a construction update, and then your next two agenda items are also mine as well, so I'll just be up here for a minute.
Just hang out up there for a while.
So at the Paycom Arena, we are working on a handful of small improvements throughout the facility. There's a list that was put together by both ASM, the operator, and the Thunder, along with our MAPS team, and we've developed this list on the screen that you see here. So this includes a series of spaces that just basically need renovations throughout the facility to help prolong the use of the building over the next few years. And these are spaces that, you know, are either really needing updates, and I can show a little bit of that, or spaces that they just wanted to give a new refresh to the space. So I'm going to run through this list quickly. We've got the Courtside Club, which is a large premium club on the event level. In there, they're looking to just add some capacity and some new furniture mainly for that space. The Micro Lounge is a new enhanced hospitality lounge that they're converting down at the event level. It's one of the Founders Lounge suites. They're going to change that into a full-service bar. It's going to be kind of a quaint, small, 50 to 70 person space to have a unique bar setup they have in there. They're going to do a hockey locker room renovation. That's the existing locker room that was built for the hockey arena years ago and is used today for just one-off uses and Thunder Girls, referees, small high school teams, etc. So this room hasn't been touched It's not used by the Thunder for their locker room space or any other visiting teams. The South Terrace Club is a club up on the club level at the south end with the large loge boxes around it. That space, we're looking to just give some new finishes and some new furniture. We're looking to add some show power to the arena. This is at the south end where stages come in for concerts and big events. All the facilities in the country are needing more power because the shows are bigger and have more lights and more stuff going on, so we're looking to enhance ours. Upgrades to the media tour dining space. This is a small space where media and dining tour acts can get off to the side and have dining. Looking to update some finishes there. The Star dressing room is one of the spaces that's very outdated and just needs a refresh. The promoter rooms, there's 3 of those in the building. These are for touring acts, and those rooms are mostly updated today, but just need some finishes and some new furniture specifically for them. The touring act crew lounge, this is a small space today that's really misused and has a bunch of storage and other things kept in it, and they'd really like to convert it into a crew space for touring lounge, for touring acts, their crews to use during setup and tear down of the space. Some expansion for both ASM and the Thunder offices. These are small 8 to 10 person offices. They want to they found some space in the building to grow. Both of them are growing and need more space for office space, so looking to add some of that. A west side box, this is kind of a little premium loge box along one of the sidelines that will be used for both the Thunder on game nights as premium seats and then for concerts and other events. A player corridor, we're creating a new corridor tunnel with the retractable seating project that's currently underway. And this new tunnel and the retractable seating will line up with this existing player corridor tunnel that I'm mentioning here. That tunnel today has 3 doors that are standard height, and the NBA requires doors to be much taller for NBA players, so we need to raise the doors in that corridor. And the last item is additional broadcast cabling, power, and network and lighting upgrades. So overall, we're sitting at a current estimate of around $4.5 million for this work.
Okay.
So just a little preview of a couple of these spaces, not all of them. So this is the existing courtside club, the first item I mentioned. Maybe you've been in there. This has, loose seating and kind of gets really busy on game nights, and so they're trying to find a way to maximize more seating in this space. And so we're looking at doing more of a built-in banquette type seating along the wall and more communal seating in the middle of the space. And then another view here of that space where in the center of that space there's a large bar and then there's 2 end bars. Well, we're looking to remove that center bar, which will open up the floor area in the middle of that space to get additional seating, and this is what that would look like where you start to fit in much more seats and open up the space. This is a quick view of what the micro lounge could be. This is that founder's lounge that we're converting into kind of a quieter, little more set the mood type space. This will be a very unique space, something they don't have anywhere in the arena today. A smaller premium club that'll offer more opportunities for people to go have a drink before and after the game. So a couple of views of that space. And looking to use more higher end finishes in this space, a little bit more wood and textures and darker colors. And then the South Terrace Club, this is up on the club level where you're standing in the concourse with this view, and you can see those glass panels on the right, and the idea was to try to really open up this space. So taking those out, putting in some new flooring and some new furniture in that space. Today, the bar is there on your left and the seating is in that space. We're not looking to touch any of that stuff. It's just tile changes and some flooring and furniture, basically. So you get a much more open feel and gathering space for people to use when they're at the event. And then this is a view of that crew lounge, really going, very unique with this space. The idea was to kind of theme it with a music theme when concerts and touring acts come into play, so they really have a small space that they can just, get away to and hang out. Maybe they're doing a little work with a laptop or, gathering with a small group of people. Any questions on the Phase 2 design improvements before I move on?
Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. On a quick construction update, so currently we've got 4 projects under contract. That's the fixed seating, which is the seating being installed in the arena as we speak. This is the seating that's attached to the concrete. You can kind of make it out in this view. You can see a line of blue seats above, halfway up the lower section there. Those are all the new seats going in, and the black seats below that are the seats that are on the retractable system, which is another project we have going. The retractables won't get started until after the season in the summer, but they're currently installing the new seats between off days and games and events. And so you see in sections 112 here, you know, what they do. They tear out the old seats one section at a time. They clean the space, and then guys come in, they pre-drill the holes where the anchors will go for the new seats, and then they install them. So they can knock it quite a bit out in a day or two when they have that freedom between events. And you start to get the new seats installed. And if you look at the picture on the right, you'll even see where there's a couple of different seat types there. You know, the older seats off to the bottom right, those are on the retractables, and then there's the gray seats in the far right, and then the new seats. So they've been really picking and choosing what they can get done in short amount of time. In addition to that, we have the elevator refurbishment of the 4 elevators. They're going to be replacing and fixing a lot of the components in those we've talked about before. One of the items was to air condition the shaft for one of those pairs, because it gets really cold in the winter in that shaft today when you ride that elevator, really hot in the summer, so we've added a mechanical unit. That work got done early, so we put that in, and the elevators are scheduled to still arrive here in into March or April to get that work going. And then one thing I'll hit on too is the scoreboard itself. The scoreboard work is scheduled for this summer, again, after the season is done. Everything's tracking schedule-wise on that equipment, and we don't see any reason for it to not start when it's supposed to. So that's my update until we go to the next item.
Any questions? Kevin, Bob, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Okay, great. Thank you for that update. So moving on to item 2D, recommend approval of the change order number 1, maps for downtown arena phase 2A scoreboard replacement, with an increase of $120,443.85.
Okay, so I'll just quickly walk through this with the new scoreboard, which is much larger than the existing scoreboard. We've talked about that before. A couple of items have come up that we kind of knew would be coming down the road. We just needed to get the engineering done on the scoreboard itself to confirm a lot of this. So item 1 is 12 new arena loudspeakers. These will be mounted below the new center hung scoreboard. I think there's 4 on the existing scoreboard today. So we'll be much larger and needing more speakers to provide more coverage for the space. That's an add of $67,000. Item 2 is additional roof steel reinforcement up on the existing truss. So this scoreboard's much larger, it weighs more, and we knew that the steel would need some upgrades to it to be able to support the new weight of the larger scoreboard. But we needed the scoreboard to be engineered and designed so we could get those final loads and then go back in on the structural engineering side of our side to come in and determine what needs to be reinforced up there. So that's an add of $243,000. And then item 3 is actually a credit. This is a credit for some changes on it says vomitories. Vomitories are basically the player tunnels or pedestrian tunnels throughout the building. The Loud City vomitory was something we had designed on some of the earlier concepts for the project. We're not doing that anymore. That's been taken out of the project up at Loud City. So there was a very large video board going in there that was in the original bid. So we're getting credit back for that, as well as some updates to the some other boards. So this doesn't impact the completion date of anything. That being said, the original contract was $6.9 million, just under 7, with this new change order for $120,000. It makes our current contract now at $7,070,020. The other thing to point out is this change order represents a 1.73% increase of the original contract amount. We need to stay under that 10% limit here in the state of Oklahoma, so we're still tracking in that fashion.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Bob, Kevin, anything to add?
I would just add, we had an interesting conversation at our venues committee yesterday about vomitory. what that meant and where that word came from, Kevin just said, is just the description or the term that's used for the tunnels. The players come in and out of, the people attending the game go up and down into the stands. Don't know where it came from. It's not a very pleasant sounding term, but we wanted an explanation of that before we approved anything.
Yeah, I do feel like that is research worthy, but yeah, maybe not for today's vote, but thank you.
But they did ultimately approve it as a subcommittee.
Okay, with the word and everything? Okay, all right. So, any other questions? Okay, if not, I would take a motion in a second to approve the change order. Please cast your vote. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 2E, recommend approval of change order number 1, MAPS 4 Downtown Arena Phase 2B retractable seating, an increase of $128,346.33.
Okay. So this, as we mentioned, is part of the retractable seating project, and that's still currently in engineering right now, trying to get all the components for what's a very complex system that retracts under the current precast out there. It gets hauled in and out multiple ways for different shows and events, et cetera. So there was quite a few changes that have been moved through here. Some of these were directly suggested or requested by the NBA after they've reviewed the drawings, as well as some setup and operational things that have helped make this system a little bit better for everything. So the first item includes a handful of things here I'm going to run through. One is a new front rail system along the front rows of the retractable seating that includes a drink rail. This was a request by the team in the ASM to add that. So today, the building has the existing dasher board for the hockey setup. That's still in there. If you go sit on those first 2 rows, you'll see that's still in place. That's going to go away, and we're going to put a rail in that spot to help people continue to have that ability to have a drink ledge that they wouldn't normally get. We're also going to add 25 linear feet of front rail at a media location. We're going to provide a new section break. This is where the sections of the seating move and can retract in different spots for a particular WWE event that they can't do today. We're going to provide new statistician position seating area. This is in section 115. This is a new location for team stats people to take notes and scoring during the game. This is a new piece that's being added, but it's also a credit for some seats that are going to be removed and some of the segments that are going to go away. We're going to get a credit for removing 312 of the specified F1 folding chairs and 135 F2 folding chairs. This was something that was miscount during the bid, and we found it, and so it's a credit back for the project. We're going to update the steel clamp accessory and the towing system for the system. This is where ASM pulls up with their forklifts and retracts these into place and then pulls them out. They wanted to do it a different way than was originally designed, and works with the equipment they already have, so that's a credit. A credit for the solid surface end panels on the sides of the system, changing them to a vinyl enclosure curtain. That was a request by the operator. A credit for removing media platforms up in 103 and 104. These are existing platforms that they have today. Initially, the NBA said we needed to raise them up. After doing some studies with them and proving that sight lines and things were still intact, they said we could leave them as they are, so we didn't have to buy that. And then adding some additional media tables for sections 103, 104, and 115. Again, with this change, there's no change in the scope of work finish date. It's $128,346 added to the original contract price of $5.8 million. So now we're at $5.948,694. Just like the last one, we can't go over our 10% limit, and this is keeping us under that. We're at 2.21%.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Comments?
I would like to point out that we did already authorize this, and that's in the memo. We were given a definite time of when this had to happen, and this doesn't happen very often, but in order to get this finished by the next basketball season, we had to get this ordered. So I authorized it. And like I said, it doesn't happen very often, but I, through the city manager, went ahead and told them to get started.
Okay,
So just want to make sure you knew that.
so that may or may not influence any votes. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments, I take a motion in a second.
I do. And you probably said this right before I got here, but I have two questions. Can you remind me the scoreboard lifespan?
Not long.
Yeah, you're talking about the new one.
Any of them
Any
that
new-
our new one?
Just the average
particularly?
lifespan of a
Yeah, we've had
scoreboard.
this question before. I don't remember if it was with this group or not, but typically we're hearing from like Daktronics, who is our contractor for this project. They say the big scoreboards have been lasting around 8 to 10, 10 to 12, somewhere in those years, that year range. And more of the change isn't that the life of the lighting or the screen itself doesn't keep up, it's that the components that support the system start to just antiquate with technology. Technology moves so fast, a lot of those components are not keeping up with the screen itself.
And then the seating, the new seating, typically how long is their lifespan? Like when do we in the industry tend to replace such seating? How often?
Yeah, that's going to depend on how much use there is, obviously. I can't remember how old the original seats are right now. I'm trying to think what we're removing.
I believe they're over 20 years.
I think they're the originals when it was open.
Yeah,
is what
I would
was
say
gonna
between
say.
20 and
So-
25 years. And part of the problem with the seats that we're seeing now is there's so many that they can't get parts for anymore to fix that have failed. That some of them won't, what do you call it, retract back up.
Retract or fold correctly.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, what happens when an existing arena has these, like this sort of infrastructure that we're talking about today with the change items specifically? Hypothetically, let's say there were a new arena in a city. We'll take Milwaukee. What happens to the equipment within the existing facility? Where does it go? Is any of it transferable into a new setting?
I think that would depend on how old it is, how much use it's had, the condition of it. I guess some of it could be transferred to a new facility, but typically the new facility is so different. You know, obviously, plates and things like that might be able to, but not, I don't think a scoreboard would be something that would move, or seats.
The other issue to that is, are you going to tear down the old arena so you can take those pieces out to put them into your new arena? Typically, the new arena is built while the old arena still exists. So at a small point in time, whether you keep two arenas or you only have one, there's an overlap there. So
But
you
there's
can't open a
also-
new one with the old stuff still in the other one
It's
being
not
used.
just seats that are put in there. They are specifically designed for the way that the sections are. And,
Correct.
you know, I didn't hear you mention the difference between the hockey and the basketball alignments.
Yeah, the retractable seating was redesigned, the geometry has changed, because what's there today was designed for a hockey event, so a different geometry, and the new retractable seating is being designed for basketball specific, so the people's angles into the player or the court, you know, have changed.
You wouldn't think it was that big a deal, but looking at it in plan and seeing it, it is significantly different as far as the way that it turns the seats to where you're looking
Have a
in the
better view.
corners. Yeah.
Right.
Just curious, I'd like to know more in other cities. So I hear what you're saying, like while one is under construction, the other one still exists. I'm just curious, like what happens? I understand things become dated, so they don't necessarily transfer sometimes, or you know the use exactly. I'm just curious what happens with the existing infrastructure, the internal infrastructure. Because the image I just had in my head is of like a, you know, demolition with these sorts of investments inside of it. And something about that doesn't feel right to me.
We can write something up for you and give you kind of a summary of what the industry's done.
That's
and
great.
what might be available.
Thank you.
Great.
Good questions.
So thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information and presentation today, as well as your great work. Item 2F, recommend receiving consultant review committee report and authorizing negotiation of an engineering services contract with Consor Engineers, MAPS 4 Bike Lane Phases 1A and 1B.
So this is another engineering contract, goes through the same process that I think all of you by now have set through. Consor has extensive experience with doing bike lanes, and they were also instrumental in actually putting together the bike lane standards. So we feel that they are a good choice, and we recommend it.
Any questions?
Yes. Question, recommendation. So I know the process is the subcommittee, then us. Heading back to the subcommittee, while I really appreciate as someone who, utilizes different modes, whether it's my feet, my bike, my car, the public transit system, I'm a big bike person. And while I appreciate the delineators for the Tier 1 bike infrastructure the city has implemented, and I've noticed when I was at a public transit conference last October in Seattle, they too have those delineators that one might see on Walker, for instance, Chartel. I also noticed in Seattle, and this won't be news to anyone in planning who's heard me for the last 4 years, but they also had these beautiful planters, like wide concrete planters that intermingle with those delineators. And the planters have landscaping inside of it, and they just add an aesthetic beauty to that area where the bike infrastructure is for both the person in the vehicle, the person on the bike, the pedestrian. And again, while I appreciate the safety which comes from the delineators, safety too comes with the planters. But I think what's missing with the delineators is beauty. And I would like to know, especially since you said these folk have kind of led the way in the industry, I'd like to learn more from them about planter cost. Maybe it's not every one of these bike lanes that gets them, but are there certain key corridors where they could go?
So we could certainly look at that. Just like our beautification efforts and some of I'm trying to remember which other projects, but somebody has to maintain that, and we have to make sure that the property owners or somebody in that area is willing to maintain that, because we don't just want a bunch of dead plants in a box at some point.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because I have an answer to that. And
Okay.
Yes, I do. Yes, I think on the one hand, find out where neighbors would, from the business or neighborhood community, be interested in tending to
Like
the
adopt a
landscaping.
planner kind of
Absolutely.
thing.
I think that's one approach. Another approach is you don't put anything inside the planter, but you get a muralist to paint the planter with landscaping. Like you put flowers and grass and public art. You don't have to put anything in the planter itself. It's about aesthetic. So if you can't get somebody to tend to it in terms of the landscaping, then just beautify it, make it pretty. And I think we underestimate how psychologically important the look is. So that'd be my
I get what
counter.
you're saying, and
Yeah.
we'll look at that. It's just that costs more money, and it
I know.
shortens how many bike lanes, how far out we can reach. But we'll
Yes.
certainly take all that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Teresa, let me just follow up. I'm familiar with what Councilman is talking about, and I would agree that if there's space for it in the street, and if it's the proper area, that could really enhance the impression that you get of that area. In terms of process, though, is that something that could be done, could be examined and evaluated and included in planning as part of our MAPS 4 work, or is that something that would have to be done by Public Works or some other
No,
part of the city?
we do it with part of our project in conjunction with Public Works. We always if we're in the street or in the public right of way, we always work with Public Works on that. Make sure it isn't a danger to cars or create a blind spot where pedestrians might get hit or something like that.
Well, I would encourage us to do that then, because I think there is some value to what James was talking about. And if we can incorporate something like that within our plans, at least take it into account and see if it's possible to do cost-wise, just physically whether it can be done in a particular area. And even if it can't be universal,
Yeah.
there may be some places that it would be useful and appropriate and enhance the look of the streetscape.
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you for those comments. Anything else? Okay. If not, I would take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2G, recommend receiving consultant review committee report and authorizing negotiation of architectural services contract with Bacchus Payne Associates for the MAPS 4 Clara Looper Civil Rights Center, vicinity North Martin Luther King Avenue between East Madison Street and Northeast 24th Street.
Again, same process, included the operator. The architect will work very closely with the operator on design and the exhibits and all those aspects of the project. In fact, we've guaranteed the operator that she'll even be included in the negotiation and scoping of the project, which is kind of an additional step of what we're used to doing, but that's fine. I think it helps enhance the project. But this comes with the approval from the Civil Rights Subcommittee.
Yes. And I will just say, being on that subcommittee, and Monique, if you want to add something, we did hear yesterday from the subcommittee members that were on the committee, the review committee, and I feel really good about their feedback of why they selected and are recommending Bacchus Payne, and they feel like they'll be a really good partner. Monique, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I'll just say I agree with that. And I think that, especially since Bacchus Payne did the renderings prior, they're very familiar with the program, very familiar with what the operator sees as that area, that
Yep.
vision. And I think they'll be perfect for this project.
Yep. Great. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. If not, I take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2H, recommend approval of architectural services contract amendment number 1 with Populous, Inc., MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum, with an increase of $193,780. Mr. Todd.
What this amendment is for is what we call commissioning. We didn't have it in the original contract. It's something that we have found is very valuable for our larger buildings. And what it entails is having someone oversee and overlook all of the construction of the various systems within the building. And that includes the fire alarm, the sprinkler system, the building automation, which building automation is the computer that runs all the different heat and air systems within the building and makes the chillers work. All the low voltage things, the Wi-Fi, all of these things. And the question was raised at the subcommittee, well, isn't the contractor responsible for that? Yes, he is. But what we want is that as it goes along, we're making sure things work so that walls don't have to get opened up to fix something or hunt something down. And also, this will be a facility much like the convention center. As soon as it's finished, there's going to be an event. And we can't be still trying to figure out if the heat and air works at that point. So when it opens, it all works. And we were very successful with the convention center on that. There was virtually no problems with any of the systems once they started. And that was a big concern with them, as it will be with the Coliseum, is that if somebody comes in, first of all, there's hesitancy to be the first event into a new building. We don't want to have a big event in there and have a massive failure of for instance, the heat and air system or Wi-Fi. Heaven forbid we lose the Wi-Fi anymore. You know how that is. So this will help prevent that.
Any questions or comments, Bob?
Just a further amplification of that, we talked about this at some length at the committee meeting yesterday. You know, Populous works with some subcontractors that have expertise in various areas. The contractor in construction will be working with subs that have various expertise, and this provides an oversight, somebody working through Populous to make sure that it all fits together, and that you have this sort of oversight from a collective standpoint rather than just depending on each sub and perhaps the contractor to make sure that it's all done. And we all felt that it was a pretty valuable addition to have that oversight on the project.
From my perspective, it seems like a little bit of an insurance policy. So $193,000 on a building of this size and importance didn't seem like a bad investment. So, any other comments? Okay, not, I take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. The motion passes, thank you. Moving on to item 2I, recommend approval of change order number 1, MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum, increase of $50,129.
So now that we're under construction with the Coliseum, you're probably going to see a change order every month, and that does not reflect on the plans or the planning or the construction or anything, but I require that we keep our bookkeeping, so to speak, current. That if there's a change order to be done, we do it at the time that it needs to be done, and we don't wait 6 months. That helps with a lot of things. It helps people's selective memories from 6 months ago. It helps keep our budget straight. So I bring to you a $50,000 change order. There's 2 things that were unforeseen right off the bat here. No matter how hard we try to keep all the utilities out of the construction zone, there was a guy wire, which is the wire that comes down from the pole that holds it, that was in conflict. So we've got to relocate this pole. But the bigger cost, the bulk of this $50,000 was an underground feeder line that feeds the entire electric into the existing Jim Norick Arena. We thought we knew where it was, but it actually kind of swung around in another way, so we need to relocate that, to keep that going, and be able to drill the foundation shafts for the building.
Electricity is important.
It is, and it's also important that you don't drill through it.
That's true. That's true.
But this comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Okay, any other comments from the subcommittee? Monique?
I'm not on that subcommittee, but I do have a question. So with these change orders and the increase in funding, is this putting this project further over budget? Or is this a contingent, part of the contingent money that we have for this
Yeah, I'm
project?
sorry, I didn't mention that. This will come out of the contingency.
Okay.
That we won't be having to find any more money. I think there's $4 million or so in that account, so we'll be drawing from that.
Okay,
And this is exactly the reason why we have that contingency.
okay. I knew we had a contingency, I just didn't know what, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, ma'am, thank you for
Okay.
mentioning that.
Okay, other questions? Okay, not, I'd take a motion in a second. Okay, please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes, thank you. Okay, item 3, discussion items. Do we have anything?
Don't have really any discussion items. I just want to give you a quick update. There's a whole lot of work going on with parks. You've probably seen all the public outreach and those meetings, and those will continue for a while. Same thing with the BRT. The first round of those meetings have finished, but there'll be a second round coming out, and they're doing their analysis right now. Bus stop plans have been in our office, and we've checked those, and you'll be seeing those next meeting or the meeting after, and we'll be sending out final plans on that. Sidewalks are underway, beautification is underway, and really what I'm saying is there's a whole lot of work going on, even if it doesn't appear on this agenda. This agenda will continue to get larger, as you can see, with the projects we've got. Palomar is well into design, and I'm happy where that is. Same thing with the diversion hub. That's going very well. I'm sure there's some things I've forgotten, but those are the ones that come to mind right now.
Okay. Any other comment? Yes.
Just a question, David. Some of the public outreach meetings that have been held on various projects, what's the public response been? Have they been well attended?
Some of them have been better attended than others. The parks has been well attended. The beautification outreach online has been better than what they expected. The BRT has been kind of moderate, but all in all, it's been pretty good. Especially with, like I said, the online surveys. It makes it so easy for somebody to just sit in their easy chair and answer a survey.
Interesting. So thinking about that, it kind of reminds me, the more personal and local it is, the better response. So our neighborhood parks, then you go to beautification, then something that's, BRT that's a little different. But interesting feedback. Thank you for that question. Any other comments? Any other items for discussion? Okay, moving on to comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll just say one thing. Neighborhood Subcommittee on Tuesday went to the animal shelter to tour the current shelter. It was a little,
Yes.
broke my heart to see there's a very large overpopulation of medium to large-sized dogs right now. So if you do know of somebody who needs a pet and they are waiving the costs for those, just try to get them to some good homes, but definitely something that I'm glad to see that the shelter is, we've selected the architect, we are working through that with the current superintendent of the animal shelter, and so he was very knowledgeable. I had no idea how much they are tasked with for Oklahoma City. Many animal issues, not just dogs and cats, but livestock and horses, barns. So pigs, there was little pig. I just, as a public service announcement, if you do need a pet, now is the time to make your way to the animal shelter, please.
Thank you for that advertisement. And thank you for your work on that. That is a really important part of our community and important project. So moving on to item 4, comments by board, staff, citizens. Do we have any citizens that have signed up to speak today? Okay. Any other comments by staff? Okay. Any other comments by board? Okay. If not, we will move to item 5, adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.